What is happening, Syracuse football fans? We are back. You got Brent X, you got Javon Edmonds, you got a live edition. We'll do a lot of Syracuse Sports, our first of 2025 Syracuse football training camp. The Orange have 4 practices in the books, and Javon and I have plenty to say about those. We are going to hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders coming up. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to me anytime. Your questions, comments, thoughts, and opinions on all matters of all Syracuse sports, but with a focus on football right now, of course, with training camp underway. We're going to get to some of our great questions and comments from our insiders coming up, and a lot more to come here for you, our Syracuse Sports Insiders, throughout training camp. Exclusive video, insights, analysis. The first thing we do when we walk off the practice field is we text our insiders what we saw at practice. Javon, it's great to be back talking football with you, my friend. A lot to get into on the show today. We're going to look at the quarterback battle, of course, talk some offensive line, some things that have been popping at camp, some preseason polls starting to come out, some great questions from our insiders. But the most important question I have to start off the show, so the ice cream man was outside of practice today. The football team got a little treat when they came out of practice. What is Javon's go-to ice cream man order?
I'm either an ice cream sandwich, a sundae, or a split. It's one of those.
Okay. Now, there's a difference. Now, see, the ice cream man that was there tonight, not every ice cream truck actually serves like soft serve ice cream or makes you sundaes or milkshakes. Sometimes it's like bomb pops, the chip witches, that type of thing. Like
that's not a real ice cream truck. That's not a real ice cream truck.
I don't disagree with that, right? But if it's that kind of truck, my go-to is the bomb pop. I think the bomb pop gives you the most for your money because I think the bomb pop tends to melt the slowest, right? And it's just darn delicious as well. Red, white, and blue. You can't go wrong. It's fantastic. So there you have it, friends. We're in the middle of summer, and the football team got a nice treat today with Skippy's ice cream outside of the practice facility. But you guys don't want to talk ice cream. You want to talk quarterbacks. It's the question on everybody's mind, Javon. Steve Angeli, Rickie Collins. I think we're in a situation here where it is a dead heat. When we talked to Jeff Nixon, the Syracuse offensive coordinator. We're going to hear from him shortly here. He said it is truly a battle at this point, which is quite the contrast, Javon, from spring ball. I watched all of 2 practices in spring ball, and to quote a great political reporter out there, I said, I've seen enough. I wrote the column that Rickie's going to start. He gets the starting job, but then, of course, out of spring ball, he had the injury. They bring in Steve Angeli. And as we stand here 4 days into camp, this is truly a competition. And Jeff Nixon saying tonight, we're probably going to see a couple of scrimmages before we hear who the starting quarterback is. But from all your observations so far, give me what you're thinking on the quarterbacks from what we've been given access to see so far.
So if you want to run the clip of Jeff,
okay,
feel free, because there's something he said at the end that I wanted to call to attention.
Okay, let's. I've actually got 2 Jeff Nixon clips here, so let's play the first one here where he calls it truly.
To get him, to come here, we have some history, with Coach Campanelli, his brother, coaching him in high school, and Steve's a talented player. So it's great to see that, again, he's not afraid to come and compete. He knew about Rickie having a really good spring, and Rickie's coming from LSU, playing behind 2 really good quarterbacks there where he's learned from, and had a really good spring for us. So, again, it's truly a battle. Like, no one's ahead right now, and like I said, we'll figure this thing out here the next couple weeks.
Okay, so that is clip 1 of Syracuse offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon. Here is clip 2.
Yeah, because we got time. We still have a lot more practices before the first game. We got our scrimmages, and I think that'll kind of determine who will be the opening day starter.
So somewhat of a timeline there, Javon. After the second scrimmage, perhaps we'll have our answer.
What stood out to me in that clip was the term opening day starter.
Mm-hmm.
Take it back to the spring. Fran was adamant. The starter is the starter. He doesn't have time to play flip-flop and go back and forth and play mind games with this team. Once he names a starting quarterback, that's going to be the starting quarterback. That was in the spring. Fast forward to August, and Jeff Nixon is using the term opening day starter. That tells me this is going to be a season-long thing and something I've been thinking all along. I truly believe you're going to see both quarterbacks this season.
I agree.
Am I a fan of two quarterbacks? No. I always say if you've got two quarterbacks, you don't have one, right? But I think you're going to see two. From what we've seen, I think Rickie Collins is the guy. But there's a familiarity and a comfortability with Angeli from the standpoint of he's got the most experience out of anyone in that room. You know, of everybody in that room, he's got the most relationships with the coaching staff. So it's like it's kind of hard to sit him. So I think you're going to see both.
In this era, in the transfer portal, connections, relationships matter so much. So Angeli's coming in cold, but not in the relationship department because he knows Nunzio Campanelli. He played for his brother, as Jeff Nixon mentioned tonight. So he does have a leg up in that department. But Rickie was named the starter out of the spring. And I'm just struck by the contrast there, Javon, because in the spring, Fran said it. This team's got to know who their quarterback is. You're going to know soon. Like, he was not messing around, maybe having the sense that Rickie was clearly the best in the room. And this is a good thing for Syracuse. I know the old adage is if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. But Syracuse has two legitimate quarterbacks in the room. You need that because what we saw last year was a rarity. Kyle McCord went start to finish and would not cede the position, right? That's the first time a Syracuse quarterback did that since Ryan Nassib in 2012. Most of the time, though, the backup in some way, shape, or form in Syracuse in the last decade is going to play either by injury to the starter or by performance to the starter. I agree with you. I think they're both going to see meaningful snaps one way or the other this year. And that opening day starter term, I think it's a good catch by you on who starts against Tennessee, but that window is not open a big crack there for whoever grabs the job to hold on to the job. You've got somebody nipping at your heels. Now, from what I've seen, look, we know about Rickie. Rickie's got great velocity. He certainly brings more mobility to the table. Steve Angeli has some highlights out there of him running with the football, but that's not something that I would characterize as a weapon in his game, right? Not that Angeli's out there throwing ducks, but from what we've seen, Javon, Rickie's been pretty sharp. He's been accurate. He's been on point. There was some great video, I believe it was day 2 of practice, where he connected deep with Jonte Cook. He has the designation of going first in the drills. He actually had the helmet cam on today, which I take that for what it's worth. You know, you're looking at the view of what the quarterback sees, and typically QB1 is the guy that takes the lead on that. McCord wore that all throughout practice last year. So there's a lot of signs that tells you that Rickie is QB1 right now because he had the distinction in spring and it hasn't been taken away from him yet. But it is a close competition at this point. Angeli is a quarterback who can run an offense. He's not going to make a ton of mistakes. He's not going to take a ton of risks either. So I guess it all depends on how frisky you're feeling that day and how you want to run that offense. And if you want to open it up a little bit more, then Rickie's your guy. If you want to play it safe, Steve Angeli's the choice. But to hear the coaches describe it the way they have so far and to hear Nixon talk about it tonight, they're not in a hurry. And I felt that would be the case, that they would take more time here. And Javon, it's almost the case where, and certainly Fran and Deion Sanders tried to do this in the spring, you'd love to see Syracuse play someone else to see which quarterback does better against another team. Scrimmages are great, but I don't think that's really going to give you enough to go on here, but it's the best that you have in college football. So right now, 2 scrimmages, and then we'll have a clearer idea of who the quarterback's going to be. But right now, it's been pretty close. And Javon, today at practice, they kept the quarterbacks at quite a distance today. I forgot my binoculars to bring to camp, but it's a good thing we had our friend Dennis Nett there with his. I'm not familiar with camera technology, but he could really zoom in and get a good look at the quarterbacks. But when we were there, we were at practice for about 20 minutes today. We didn't see much today, but we have seen enough through 4 days to get a general sense of how this thing's going.
Yeah. So there's 2 things I want to bring up. With Steve, you mentioned him playing it safe. Mm-hmm. So with that, at some point, check down Charlie gets stale, right? So it's when does that happen, and how much of it is, Jeff with Steve, like, let's get you comfortable with those, and then we're going to have to bootleg and take a shot. And it's how does Steve do in that situation, number one. And number two, I think we could see this thing really go through the first 3 weeks of the season. Like, if the starter doesn't really wow in the first half of Tennessee, I can see the backup taking the second half. Same thing with UConn. And I think both play against Colgate regardless. Matter of fact, there might be coaching malpractice if they don't play both against Colgate. But by the conference opener, week 4 in Death Valley, there has to be a guy. So I don't think the competition – I think what we're covering is week 1 starter. I don't think we're covering permanent starter.
That really is a great point. Great point by you and Nixon. Yep.
I think by – what's going to be the Monday of the Clemson game? September 16th, 15th or 16th is when they need to have their guy. Like, okay, you are the starter, because conference play, it's ridiculous. Clemson, Duke, SMU, Pitt, Georgia Tech, Carolina, Miami, Notre Dame, Boston College. That's brutal.
Which
you got to have your guy.
It just reminds, Javon, how fortunate Syracuse was last year. They won the transfer portal lottery with Kyle McCord. They knew from the second he walked on campus who QB1 was. And Nixon, I think, gave the answers you would expect a coach to give. He doesn't want to give too much away here, but you are coaching differently when you have a Kyle McCord where you can already have things installed. You know who the guy is. He's working on the reps. And just the calm and the confidence that comes with that versus the time you have to spend evaluating 2 quarterbacks, how you install, per their skill set. Everybody's saying all the right things. They're all making plays. They're competing with each other. But as we speak, this team does not know who their quarterback is. And I don't think it's one of those things where they have a sense of it either. I'm sure everybody has seen great plays from growth quarterbacks, but has the team picked a favorite? Are you hearing any whispers about that kind of thing? Not yet. I think this truly has been a competition so far, but they also haven't put pads on yet. We haven't really seen. That's tomorrow. Tuesday, August 5th is when they put the pads on. Good timing for the ACC network to come in town. That's going to be their day to highlight Syracuse football. So, and Javon, I wasn't there the first 2 days. Did you guys see any true 11 on 11 in those 2 days? Not that it would matter because it was the first 2 days of camp, but we haven't even seen that, right? So until I see a legit 11 on 11 between these two, I want to hold off on making any kind of declaration at this point. But based on what we've seen so far and what we've heard, both from the coaches and from elsewhere, it does seem to be a true legitimate competition, truly a battle, to use Nixon's words at this point. Now, the offensive line in front of them is a 1A story to the one when it comes to the quarterback, Javon, because you're going to have 4 new starters out there. And many of the faces on this line, which we think right now, and trust me, this is fluid. You got Bertrand at left tackle, Rice at left guard. I'm fairly certain, as you are, that Austin Collins is going to be the starting center of this team, the transfer from Louisville. Pringle at guard, and then a big spoon at right tackle, Darius Weatherspoon. Obviously, that can change. Someone can win out those jobs. And Dale Williams is going to mix in guys throughout camp here to see who takes those positions. And he likes to go 6, 7, 8, sometimes even 8 deep on the offensive line as it is. But I'm going to give the floor to you on this, Javon. He has a story coming out on this, folks, that you should check out, by the way, on syracuse.com. Focusing on the new faces, the new blood that they brought in from the portal, many of which are competing and will have positions on this offensive line to protect whoever wins the quarterback battle. So you got a lot of fluidity on the front line and at the most important position on the field.
Yeah, so those guys have been doing a lot of cross-training, and don't be shocked if that 5 isn't the opening day 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think you hit the nail on the head. These guys are going to play probably 7 or 8 O-linemen throughout games. I think that's just unless you've got a Will Campbell or a Calvin Banks or something like that, you're not really seeing every down offensive lineman in college football anymore because you want to keep these guys fresh. and get the reps for the guys that are going to need to be the 60 snap a game as opposed to 20 snap a game guys for the next season. So like with that lineup you mentioned, Pringle was at right guard. I talked to him today. He's been doing most of his work at tackle. And then the spring, we didn't see Nikhil Veteran running with the ones. So it's very possible that you see, Spoon at left tackle, Rice at left guard, Collins at center, Ferguson at right guard, right? And Pringle at right tackle.
Ferguson, by the way, briefly, John, he was in a green jersey until today. He came out of the green jersey today. So nothing serious, a little banged up, but back out there at full speed, it seems.
Yeah. So like, I wouldn't be shocked if you see that 5 and then Nikhil Veteran comes in, and then the 5 you just mentioned becomes the thing. Like they're just shuffling around, and Joe Cruz is getting some work, and Miller's getting work. So like the team, they want to keep the O-line fresh. That's the thing, keeping the O-line fresh.
And then people are wondering, of course, about Big Byron Washington, all 6'7",
and he's
3,
going to play. Byron's
and he'll play. I don't think there's any question.
They love the guy.
Everybody loves him. One of my favorite things to do at camp when we have the opportunity to see this is watching people try to push him around, because there's not a lot of people on the field that can do it. He's just, it's like watching a fly hit a brick wall. You're just not going to move when you go up against that guy. And he should play 6'7", 370-ish. They put some new weights up on the roster on syracuse.com. He's a mammoth human being that should be out there in certain situations, but you always have to keep in mind, of course, he's a freshman, and how much can he handle at this point, and what they're taking in. But certainly they are going to go 8 deep. So it's almost the same designation, Javon, right? Opening day offensive line, but with a few other guys that are going to mix in, which I think is smart, right? And I know that's against Tennessee and then Clemson right around the corner and that tough schedule that Syracuse has, but those are the cards that you've been dealt with, the kind of roster you have, and you've got to deal with it as it comes here. And it's not all going to be crystal clear on August 30th when they go to Atlanta. This is going to be a work in progress through the first month of the season, but I think you made a great point. You need all of this to be as buttoned up as possible before you go to Death Valley against Clemson in late September.
Yeah, and Travion Max had a decent fall, from what I've been told. So, yeah, these guys are going to want to play. I will tell you this. I think the future of that offensive line is bright. It really is. Like Matthew Hahn's a freshman from CBA, and everyone knows how good that program is up here. But Fran loves the development system at CBA. So if he's everything that, they played him up to be, that's going to be somebody they're excited about. Jaden Mann out of Cardinal Hayes, that's going to be someone they're excited about. I can tell you firsthand, Skylar Harvey from Archbishop Curley, that program is producing they're finding behemoths on that offensive line down in Northeast Baltimore. He's billed at 6'7", 330 as a freshman. They're going to love him. So, we talked to the scouting staff, and they told us, listen, what Fran wanted was to get bigger in the trenches and faster everywhere else. And they've done that. So, I think they'll be very pleased with the offensive line this season and heading forward.
You mentioned CBA. Fran loves it so much, he's going to send his young son there to continue his education and his football career. You always see Braden around at practice working with the quarterbacks, and he's always one of the last people after practice clears out. He's always working on his sideline catches, and he's a football kid. And, of course, Fran's son, who transferred in, Fran Jr., he's been working in a lot of different positions out there. Long snapper, we've seen him at running back. He came in listed as a linebacker, so we'll see where he ends up. But you mentioned CBA. So just to update people, this is a relatively healthy team right now, but we have seen a few guys in green jerseys. The most notable green jersey, and what we maybe think of it as a freshman wide receiver, Darian Williams, who came in from CBA. He's in a green jersey. He did not have a helmet today, so we'll have to get an update on what his status is at this point. Jamie Tremble's the most notable guy in a green jersey right now, tight end who's trying to work his way in there. Dan Villari is listed as the starter. They've been very high on Villari here in this offseason, but Tremble's should and I think will get on the field in some capacity, but he's been limited with a green jersey. And a couple other guys that have the green jersey designation right now. Just got to pull up my list here while we're talking about him here. So let's see. Also on the list, Javon, jump in while I'm looking at it here. Nate Prater, defensive back, is in a green jersey right now. Ferguson, we mentioned, wasn't a green until today. And I also spotted Jackson Ike out there today, an offensive lineman in a green. I believe that's everybody, but fill me in if I missed one. Oh, that's right.
Julian McFadden in a
sling. He is in a sling right now, so he is out for a considerable amount of time. So you have 2 freshman receivers that have gone down. Yeah. Speaking of receivers, so Javon and I wanted to give you a couple of things that have been popping at camp from other things that we have been able to observe, and it's hard not to say Jonte Cook's one of them. They brought in Cook for that pure speed, that pure talent, had a couple of minor off-the-field incidents here, and they're taking a chance on him. He, left Texas, essentially didn't work out at the University of Washington after a short period of time there. So if Fran Brown's giving him a chance to straighten up, they're counting on him to be a leader. They're counting on him to be a leader in terms of statistics as well. He flies over the field. He's described as explosive. He's not hard not to notice. Again, we've seen limited interactions between the quarterbacks and the receivers, but when you just watch drills, you talk to people that have seen other parts of practice we're not privy to. He is, and a few players I've talked to, Javon, I'm sure you've heard it from others as well. You mentioned that name and their eyes light up, right?
Yeah.
How explosive he is. So whoever wins the quarterback battle is going to have a weapon in Jonte Cook. And look, that's the portal giveth, the portal taketh away. Everybody was kind of grinding their teeth about Trevor Pena for a couple of days, and you wish Trevor well at Penn State, and that was what was best for him. But it appears that they have neutralized, if not brought a different dynamic to the table with Jonte Cook, as he's bringing loads of speed and talent to that room.
Yeah, Jonte has been easy for those guys to throw to. And like you said, you mentioned his name, and guys just go on and on for minutes about how he's been as a football player and as a locker room leader. He's excited about his opportunity at Syracuse. He's excited that Fran and the staff took the time to get to know him and leave his past in the past and give him a fresh start and a clean slate at Syracuse. And I think he really is determined to prove them right and make them proud. So, and it's just ironic that he's got Trevor's old number,
Yeah. Right. Literally into his old spot and his number.
Yeah.
Javon, what's something else or two that's been popping for you in the days of camp we've observed so far?
Linebacker. I think linebacker may have been addressed because in the spring, I was on here, hey, linebacker and corner, those are the 2 spots that need the most help. And they found their best linebacker, Gary Bryant III out of South Dakota. That's their best linebacker by far. We've seen them do punch-out drills in the spring and the fall. Folks, take this how you want to take this, because we do a lot of walking around and paying attention to different positions and all that. But I promise to you, he is the only one I've seen actually punch the ball out. And he did it twice today. The guy can cover his butt off. Strong dude. Another one who's been described as just a real locker room leader. And the guy grew up playing watching Ray Lewis every Sunday. So, he takes the linebacker position seriously. And he doesn't really come off the field too much. And the linebackers room is going to be a rotation. But because of his ability to cover, he doesn't really come off the field too much. James Hurd has had a good camp. And then we know Derek McDonald is going to be in there. So I think between those 3, they may have taken that step they were looking to take at linebacker, which kind of leaves things up to the corners, and then it's just who are going to be the corners. Demetrius Samuel, Chris Peel, Davion Kerr. We know Buxton's in the nickel, or Grant or Chestnut, one of them. See how they want to play that 3 safety rotation. It'll be interesting. But I was telling you earlier, I would not mind them actually playing some base defense this season.
Right. Yeah.
In a 4-3 and put Hurd, McDonald, and Bryant out there together. I'm very intrigued to see them 3 on the field together.
We talked to Elijah Robinson, Syracuse defensive coordinator, on Tuesday. Maybe we should offer up the suggestion and see what he thinks about that in the presser. But you're right. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders got 2 videos today from 2 names you mentioned. One was Gary Bryant, who I know it's a drill, but Javon said it. You could just see how sharp the skills are. He stuffs people. He's getting the ball loose. He has popped, right? Barry Buxton had a great day today. We were only there for about 22 minutes, but Fran likes to wear the wireless mic at practice, and 3 or 4 times said, "Nice hit, Buck. Nice hit, Buck." And there's a video that I sent you guys. He stood up somebody in a drill. You can see the role he's going to play. He's one of those names that rolls off the tongue. I asked Yassine Willis today who won practice, and he did not hesitate. The defense won again. So the offense has been doing some up downs at the beginning, or pardon me, at the end of practice, and apparently the defense won again today. So there's a few names there, but I think you just hit the nail on the head in the sense of this, Javon. There's a little bit more ease with linebacker, and I think young Anton Delorier is going to see the field as well, who's hard to ignore, very physical presence there. And speaking of linebackers, Keith Bullock there today, helping out at practice. Dyshawn Davis is a recent addition to the coaching staff. He's now a scouting assistant. We got a chance to catch up with him a little bit yesterday. He's been added to the staff, and helping out on the defensive front today was none other than Dwight Freeney, who you kind of wonder when you give him those titles, Javon, right? There was a release and a story about Javon. I forget what his actual title is, right? But I don't care what title is it. Dwight Freeney?
Player development, yeah.
Player development, right? He's at practice, and you could just tell, like, Nick Williams, defensive line coach for Syracuse, is absorbing everything. You got a Hall of Famer on the field. You got a first-round draft pick in Bullock on the field, which we have not seen enough of that in recent years. Dave Jacobs, former Syracuse kicker. Now, we're going back a little older than Bullock and Freeney in that case, but still a great kicker. He's kicked back in the Archbold days. We're talking how far back Dave Jacobs. He's out of practice on Monday, in the thick of it, filming the kickers with his phone. I saw him talking to Rickie Brumfield, the special teams coach, after practice. This has been a big I don't know who the gentleman was on the sideline. It might pop in my head, but there was somebody talking yesterday who just reiterates what we've heard from so many players, Rob Carpenter, from Robert Drummond, from alums, that it's like, come on, we feel welcome again. That just was not the case in the previous administration. It was the weirdest thing that Dino Babers just didn't want alums around doing what they now have a wide open door. You show up at practice, Fran might grab you and throw you on the field and say, get out there, coach, what position you play. Okay, get out there, help out, because we've seen a lot of that in practice.
That's the way it's supposed to be in college sports.
Yes.
That's just the way it was going to be. That was something Fran was big on. And now somebody was in my mentions on Twitter last week. I hate to do it. I'm going to piss you off. That was something Fran has been big on his whole career, especially at Temple. He used to always try to get those guys to come back. Like that's a consistent thing of his. I can tell you firsthand, Rob Drummond is going to be at a few practices this fall when his schedule clears up. I mean, like you said, Dwight Freeney, that can only help your program, recruiting and development-wise. Like, who better to teach you than a Hall of Famer? You know, you see, I kind of shook when you said his name. I get chills. As a Ravens fan, there was no team I was afraid of growing up because they had everyone's number except the Colts. The Colts were the one team Baltimore just couldn't figure out. Like that when Peyton went to Denver and they went up to Mile High and got that overtime playoff win in 2012 on the way to the Super Bowl, that's the best win I've experienced in my life because Peyton Manning gives me nightmares. Like the Ravens used to make Tom Brady lose sleep, but Peyton always found a way to figure it out. So yeah, those Colts teams just, oh man, I'm talking, there was one year Steve McNair had a great regular season. Playoffs came, played the Colts, couldn't move the ball worth a damn. And that just shows you how great Dwight Freeney and those guys were. So when I hear the greats from that team, him and Marvin Harrison Sr.
Yeah,
oh man,
for sure.
Syracuse just might not be good for my mental health. I don't know. Those guys give me nightmares, Brent. I'm telling you.
I can imagine as a Ravens fan, and I know that you're a little younger, but I don't care how old you are. As somebody who was in Baltimore, you hear the Colts, and there's certain emotions that come through in that. And when they were dominating and winning those games, that had to be like Just more
It
salt
just
in the
stunk.
wound.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know for that.
Yeah.
It stunk for my grandparents' generation. They hated seeing them come back to Baltimore and win games. It was awful.
Javon, we got some great questions and comments from our Syracuse Sports Insiders. You see it there on your screen if you're watching on YouTube. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to me anytime. What you want us to ask players and coaches, the first thing we do when we walk off the practice field is we text you our observations, what we saw. Our insiders knew hours ago the things we're talking about here on the pod about who was at practice and what we saw. We'd love for you to join today. You can try it free for 2 weeks. What a perfect time to do that here during training camp. And it continues all year long with all the sports, but of course with a big focus on football right now. And our Syracuse Sports Insiders get exclusive voice heard on this podcast. We do not take comments from anywhere else except from our insiders. And Cooper B leads us off today saying, out of the 5 ranked opponents, before we do this question, let me mention this briefly, Javon. So the USA Today coaches poll came out today. Syracuse got 16 votes. They have 5 teams that are in this poll. No matter how you feel about polls, and we'll get into that here shortly. Number 5, Notre Dame. Number 6, Clemson. Number 10, Miami. Number 16, SMU. Number 18, Tennessee. All those games are away from the JMA Wireless Dome. So Cooper says this, of those 5, how many wins does Syracuse have to walk away with? Because if it's 0-5, then that says we're taking a step backwards, in my opinion. He thinks they've got to go at least 2 out of 3 in that case. I don't think that is an unreasonable request. Now, beating Clemson at Clemson, beating Notre Dame at Notre Dame, it's going to be tough. That's about as tough as it gets. Knocking off Tennessee on opening day in Atlanta, not as high of a mountain to climb as I think people are making it out to be. SMU is a conference game. You got to win tough conference games on the road, right? That's winnable. That's doable. That's something that Syracuse should be able to pull off. SMU was great last year, obviously, in the ACC championship game, and I'm not brushing by them in any case. Miami is a team Syracuse can beat. I know that because they proved it last year, and I get some of the key players from that game are no longer there, but let's just say I do not have the faith in Carson Beck that others do. So 2 and 3 in those 5, Javon, I think that's a reasonable request to show Syracuse, despite that tough schedule, is still inching its way forward.
Yeah, and so I did a radio appearance with the guys down in Tennessee last week before. And just going through the schedule, I'm saying I'm telling them, like, of those ranked teams, Tennessee has to be a win. And Miami and Notre Dame, you have to split. You can't lose back-to-back heading into rivalry week against Boston College. And it's just, you've got to psych yourself up for those games. Like with Miami, you say, hey, we're down 21 to them last year and won. And I'm going to be honest with you, like, Brent, I'm not a big Mario Cristobal guy. And I think that team got worse. Carson Beck is not Cam Ward.
Miami doesn't scare me. Miami does not intimidate me at all.
You should not be afraid of the Hurricanes.
Yeah, and that's not a tough environment there. That's not an intimidating.
Not anymore. It's not the old Orange Bowl.
Yeah, it's not exactly.
Ed Reed and Jeremy Shockey and Andre Johnson aren't running around down there anymore. It's just not happening. So you've got to tell yourself, this is a win. And then with Notre Dame, if Steve Angeli's your starter, that's where you, as Fran Brown, you go and you challenge him like, hey, they pushed you out to number 3 on the depth chart behind a freshman. Go show them why they were wrong. Don't be check down Charlie today.
That's right.
Go be a playmaker. So you've got to split those. You win both of those, you're cooking with fish grease. I'll be honest with you. The only one I just don't give them a chance against is Clemson.
It's a tough ask. That is.
I've got a real good feeling about the Tigers this year. I
do too.
And that environment being the first conference game while you're still trying to figure your team out, especially at quarterback, that is a tough ask. You know, and I'll give them a pass if they go down to Dallas and lose the SMU also. Because I like Brett last week. I think Kevin Jennings is Kevin Jennings epitomizes the ACC being the conference of quarterbacks. I really don't buy into the conference slogans, but this year I buy into it with the ACC. And again, it's first half of the season, but like you got to go to Georgia Tech and win, and you've got to split Miami and Notre Dame.
That's a game we're not talking enough about, by the way.
And that Georgia Tech game is going to be fireworks.
That's going to be fireworks. They're good. They did not make the poll, but got votes. Georgia Tech and Duke are two teams we're probably not talking about enough because we focus so much on now one of those is at home, one of those is on the road, but we focus on those other road games so much. Syracuse, remember, is going to Atlanta twice this year. That Georgia Tech game, look out. That game is not one we're talking about enough. It's not early in the schedule like it was last year, but don't forget about that. Duke's got one of the better transfer quarterbacks in Darian Menshaw. So you always look for the bump in the road, Javon. Like football is one of those sports. We have so much time in between games and a long off season, and you kind of lay this plan out. Well, of course, Mike Tyson said it best. Everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
That first time something goes wrong, that does not go according to plan. I think this next comment from Q's End Zone speaks to this in a way. He says, I think making a bowl game at 6-6 with this schedule and young team would be an incredible coaching job by Fran. I don't know if I agree with it would be an incredible coaching job. I think most people would take a deep exhale and say they got to a bowl game, they got through it, they did what they had to do with a young team. But what this emphasizes, and a lot of people I think are putting a lot of weight on this, is taking care of business at home, right?
Yeah.
You have to win your home games, a couple of which are tough. North Carolina on Halloween. Who knows what kind of team is coming in on that day? I mentioned Duke. You can't stub your toe against UConn. UConn's a bowl team. I think they should beat UConn. I think they're much better than UConn, but that's just one of those games. Look, that can't be the Stanford game of this season, right? Where things just don't happen.
No matter how much respect Fran has for Jim Mora Jr., there has to be a win. Absolutely.
Exactly. Jack H. wanted to chime in on those preseason rankings. He's saying they don't mean anything. Mark Packer every year shares this, and rightly so, that over the last 35 years, a preseason top 10 team has ended the year outside the top 25 every year. Now, I want to turn this over to you for a sec, Javon, because you are going to be an AP voter this year. I have been an AP voter, and I get where people are coming from here. Preseason polls are fine if you keep them in perspective for what they are. They are a thermometer. They are, let me just take the temperature of college football. It's not a precise ranking. What happens with a thermometer? It constantly goes up and down. It changes. It's a sense, a snapshot, a picture of, hey, college football's back. Here's who we think's pretty good, right? No one's 100% on this. What you're doing as a college football fan is what? You're saying, this is who I think is good. This is who I think is bad. It's what Javon and I were just doing with Clemson and some of the teams on the schedule. Ranking them out, putting them on a list, if you keep it in perspective, is fine. I get that in prior years, people got upset about how much emphasis was put on the poll. But in the college football playoff era, I think these polls are exactly in a spot where they need to be. They're just a little reflection of the sport. Take it for what it's will. If you think this team should be 7 and that team should be 12, and that, fine. But I like that college football fans talk to each other about this stuff, right? So you're going to be an AP voter this year, Javon. The first preseason poll is next week, I believe. The preseason AP poll.
Our ballot is already in.
It is in.
We had a deadline of sometime last week to turn it in.
So it is in, and we will learn it soon. So tell me what you're thinking going into this year with a broader view of the sport and the duties of being an AP voter.
If you want to put that comment back on the screen, feel free, because I like that stat of the one top 10 team every year for the last 35 years finishes outside of the poll.
Mm-hmm.
My top 10 goes in this order: Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Penn State, Clemson, Texas, Notre Dame, Oregon, LSU, Miami. Had the same top 10 as the coaches poll, just in a different order. That sentence strikes me because I got to be honest with you. I can absolutely see one of Notre Dame, LSU, or Miami falling out of this thing by the end of the year. Like maybe Notre Dame didn't get its quarterback correct. LSU, I'm not a big Brian Kelly guy. Just not. in Miami. Like I said, I'm not a Carson Beck guy.
I'm feeling
not a
Miami
Mario
in this
Cristobal
discussion.
guy.
We're looking at you, Miami.
Hey, that's a good observation. I think it might be one of those three teams. I do. But based off of if everything goes right and these coaching staffs are who I know they are, but the rosters perform to what I think they can be, that's my top 10. But I think out of my top 10, those three are the most likely to fall out.
I love that. We got a preview of Javon's poll. Got the top 10 right out there because that's a great stat. One of those teams is going to plummet out of the poll. And that's how it goes. That's the beauty of sports. If we scripted these things out and it followed that script, how boring would it be? Polls are fun. Just keep them in perspective. It's what fans are doing anyway. They're fine. They're harmless. If you want to go yell on Twitter about it, as they said on Family Guy, if you want to go complain on the internet about it, go right ahead. They're fine, especially these days. Especially with the college football playoff. That's the poll that matters these days.
Yeah.
Right?
It's banter.
It's banter. It's fun. It's discussion. And that's what sports fans do. That's what we did on this pod tonight. But I think we'll wrap it up there for this edition of Syracuse Sports. But Javon, Chris, and I will be back at practice on Tuesday. We will be back at practice on Thursday. They have Wednesday off. We'll be back at practice on Friday. And I'm not sure when the second pod of the week is going to come. It could be tomorrow if we're feeling it. If Elijah Robinson notes something of note, if you will, that we want to bring to you, or if Javon and I just feeling it, we could be back tomorrow, but we are going to do at least one more pod at some point this week. We'll keep our Syracuse Sports Insiders updated first on that. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and more via the Syracuse Sports Insider text line as Syracuse football training camp continues here. So much more to come here as we're just 4 days into training camp, and we'll stay on it for you here on the pod and on the Syracuse Sports Insider text line, of course, on syracuse.com. For now, though, Javon, thank you, my friend. If you want to go enjoy the ice cream of your choice, now's the time to do it, from the ice cream truck or not. I will do the same. I think I got a chip witch still in the freezer there calling my name. And we will talk to you again next time here on Syracuse Sports, my friends. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll talk to you soon.